I think that a lot of the time we're not building resilience because we are emotionally, here's a big term, but just get ready for it. We're emotionally dysregulated. What does it mean to be dysregulated? That means that we're just off. We're not feeling ourselves. We don't feel grounded. We don't feel at peace. We don't feel in a place of calm. As a matter of fact, we may even feel the opposite. We may feel stressed. We may feel anxious. We may feel afraid. When you're walking around and those are sort of the dominant feelings that you have, I'm not judging you, not even for 1 second. I'm helping you. But it's emotional dysregulation. And, okay, maybe sometimes we need a therapist and maybe sometimes we need to go see the big psychiatrist, but maybe we just need to understand that you're a vehicle and you have to regulate better, right? That's it. You just need your maintenance. Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning into another episode of the Flourish podcast, where today I want to talk for a couple of moments about 3 things they never told you about building personal resilience. 3 things they never told you. And I think this is so important because you hear a lot today about resilience. You hear a lot today, people talking about resilience, and everybody seems to be thinking about resilience. And yet I think that there's some missing parts of the conversation that even the alleged experts are not actually telling you about resilience. And today I want to help clear those things up so that you understand resilience. And I always like to begin the conversation of resilience with this question: how can 2 people grow up in the exact same environment and yet end up completely different? And maybe you have friends like that. Maybe you and your own brother or sister are like that, where the both of you grew up in the same environment. And of course, you ended up on completely different trajectories. And I'm not so much talking here like, maybe they make a bit more money than you, or you make a bit more money than them, or you became a doctor and they became an artistic director, or, I don't know, maybe you got into video and they got into dentistry. I'm not really talking about that, because we all understand that people have different inclinations, don't they? They have different interests. They have different talents. They have different gifts. And that's 100% okay. Matter of fact, we want to encourage that. Find out who you're meant to be and become that. So I'm not really talking about that. I'm more talking about one person, 2 people growing up in the same environment, but one person ending up, in substance abuse or addiction, and the other person having really high levels of mental health and well-being. I'm talking about one person ending up in a horrible state of abusive relationships, and maybe the other person having very healthy relationships. I'm talking about one person ending up having a life where they're in and out of prison, and maybe someone else in a situation where they have a very healthy existence. And so when I'm talking about those concepts, I'm not talking so much about personality differences. I'm actually talking about choices that people make. And I think that it has a lot to do with, did one person of the 2 build personal resilience or not? And I think building personal resilience makes all the difference. I actually think that resilience is not a genetic gift that we're given at birth. It's not like some personality trait like, oh man, that Abe guy, he's just so resilient. It's kind of cool, his personality. No. Resilience is like a muscle that you develop. It's like a skill. It's like a tool that you put in your toolkit. And so part of what I want to share when I'm talking here today about 3 things they never told you about building personal resilience is I want to share with you 3 skills or 3 tools that you can use that will help you to develop your resilience. Why don't I go ahead and give you the first one? The first one is this: they never told you that your resilience is about your self-talk. Your resilience is about your self-talk. Now, every single one of us has a voice in the back of our head, and that voice in the back of your head is either singing your praises and empowering you and cheering you on, or that voice in the back of your head could be the worst voice among all the other voices in your life. And I can tell you that when that voice is speaking in a way that's empowering, that's edifying, that lifts you up, that supports you, it is a heck of a lot easier to develop resilience than if it doesn't. And why is that? Because your words create worlds. I want you to think about that for a moment, right? The Bible says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Then God said, let there be light. In other words, the entire world was created with a word. Now, a single word can last but a moment, but its impact can ripple for a lifetime. And every one of us has those words in us. Maybe it was said by a teacher who was harmful. Maybe it was said by a friend. Maybe it was said by a family member. And those words actually in the back of our mind can completely impede and hinder your ability to build resilience. And why is that? Because your words are within you. And you can face 1,000 enemies on the outside if you have internal strength. But if your own self-talk, if the words that are inside your head are defeating you, if they're beating up on you, then you won't be resilient. Now, it's as simple as somebody with sickness or disease. Something as simple as that. And I'm not, victim blaming here for 1 second, but I know people, they get just a little sniffle. And remember, I live in Canada where people get sniffles a lot because it's freaking cold here. And the moment they just get a little sniffle, they're like, I can feel the cold coming on. And guess what? 2 days later, they're in bed with a cold. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's like, why? Why would you use your words to speak that? Me, I could sniffle come out. It's like, hey, well, I got a little sniffle coming on. Good. Thank God I'm healthy. You might say, well, what's the difference? Well, it's not just my mindset. It's my words. My words create my world. It's the same thing with a person with a poverty mindset. Well, I lost my job again. Oh, there goes the government again, raising my taxes. Oh, there goes the situation again. Oh, inflation's up again. I guess it's going to be hard for me to succeed. I guess it's hard for me to move forward. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Speak the negative. Go ahead, speak the death. Go ahead, speak the poverty. Not me. Tell you what, I'm going to speak life. I'm going to speak hope. I'm going to speak abundance because that's my future. That's my destiny. That's where I'm going. Doesn't mean I bury my head in the sand and I don't acknowledge the reality, but I am sure as heck not going to speak negativity or poverty into my existence. That is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my words, the power of my words, to speak the direction for my life. And you, again, argue with this if you like. That's okay. You don't have to listen to what I'm saying. But as a person who has developed resilience, I can tell you a huge part of it has been mastering my mouth. My mouth just wants to say what it wants to say, expressing the thoughts of my heart. And sometimes the thoughts of my heart aren't very healthy. So what I need to do, get control of my words. Use your words to build your world. We believe that everyone should have the opportunity to work in a flourishing workplace. For so many, the workplace drains them and drags them down, rather than being a place where everyone belongs, everyone is valued, and everyone thrives. When you have a workplace like that, not only will it be positive, productive, and profitable, but you will be contributing to the mental health and well-being of every single person on your team. At Flourishing Workplace, we are changing the world by changing the workplace. Book a discovery call today and find out how we can help you create a workplace where everyone belongs, everyone is valued, and everyone thrives. The second thing the experts are not telling you about building resilience that I'm going to tell you here today in this video is self-care. So the first is self-talk. But the second is self-care. And I believe when we talk about self-care, we're talking not about bubble baths and, dark chocolate. I think that's great. Go ahead and have those things. But what we're really talking about, friends, is emotional regulation. Emotional regulation. Now, I really think that the best form of self-care and the one I can guarantee you haven't heard about enough is emotional regulation. Now, I am not a mechanic. Okay. I know I may have fooled you. Maybe in looking at me, you're like, there's a mechanic, but I'm not. Okay. So if my car breaks down, I don't know anything about fixing it. Is there enough gas in it? That's about all I know. But I can tell you that people who are regular in the area of mechanics, like they make sure that vehicles drive properly, especially if they're using quads or trucks or high performance vehicles or whatever, they'll tell you this: you got to maintain whatever you drive. If you drive something hard, let's say you got that truck and it's pulling a huge amount of weight, or let's say you're driving that motorcycle and you're driving it hard, whatever you have that you're operating with, you got to maintain. That's why every so many kilometers, I bring my car into the dealership and I say, hey, can you please change my oil? Can you please check all my fluids? Can you please do an overall engine check? Why? Because I've been driving this thing and I drive my vehicles pretty hard. And so I got to make sure that I'm maintaining what I drive. Now, I want you to think about that in the context of your own emotions, your own thought life. You are driving pretty hard. There's no doubt. Like, you have a hard time shutting this down, this brain of yours, this mind of yours. I have a hard time shutting mine down too. We got to regulate it. We got to regulate it. I think that a lot of the time we're not building resilience because we are emotionally, here's a big term, but just get ready for it. We're emotionally dysregulated. What does it mean to be dysregulated? That means that we're just off. We're not feeling ourselves. We don't feel grounded. We don't feel at peace. We don't feel in a place of calm. As a matter of fact, we may even feel the opposite. We may feel stressed. We may feel anxious. We may feel afraid. When you're walking around and those are sort of the dominant feelings that you have, I'm not judging you, not even for 1 second. I'm helping you. But it's emotional dysregulation. And, okay, maybe sometimes we need a therapist and maybe sometimes we need to go see the big psychiatrist, but maybe we just need to understand that you're a vehicle and you have to regulate better, right? That's it. You just need your maintenance. Yeah, you just need your maintenance. And, like we talk about self-care, like you can be like, well, I need bubble baths and I need this and I need that. You know what I found? I've got some friends, and it's interesting. I mean, believe it or not, I do have friends. I'm just joking. I have lots of friends. But some of my friends, when they get into a place of stress, I watch them. They'll post pictures of themselves, going to drink a lot. They'll post pictures of themselves hitting the clubs. They'll post pictures of themselves, going on long vacations. And listen, sometimes, hey, we need a vacation. Sometimes, hey, we're going to go hit the club because we deserve a good time. We deserve a time of celebration. That's okay. But if those are the ways that you're emotionally regulating, like every time you get stressed, I need a vacation. Every time you get stressed, I need to go have a drink. That's not healthy. What I think about emotional regulation, you guys probably heard it. I like to use just a three-step simple process. You probably heard it growing up when you were in school. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. Where does this stop, drop, and roll come from? This is like if you're ever your clothes get on fire. What do they tell you to do? Stop, drop, and roll. And that will put the fire out, which is great, by the way. I mean, absolutely. Stop, drop, and roll. Well, when your emotions are on fire, when you are emotionally dysregulated, when you're not in a healthy place emotionally, I think the very first thing you got to do is you got to stop. Stop for a moment to see what is going on and acknowledge what you're feeling. Acknowledge what you're thinking. Secondly, drop what you're feeling. Drop what you're thinking because it may not be accurate. It may not be serving you. It may not be empowering you. And I know sometimes it's hard to drop what you're thinking. I know it's hard to drop what you're feeling. I know that. That's okay. I'm not saying that this is instant. So I got to learn to stop. When I'm in the moment and I just want to freak out, I got to learn to stop. And then second, after I learn to stop, I got to learn to drop. I got to learn to drop that negativity. I got to learn to drop that fear. I got to learn to drop that negative thinking cycle and then roll. What do I mean by roll? Roll with it, with breath. Start to deep breathe, right? Breathe in through your nose, 3, 4, 5 seconds. And I like to kind of do it like this. I'm breathing in, and I'm a person of prayer, so I'll also say, Dear God, thank you that right now I breathe in your peace. I breathe in your joy. I breathe in your love. And now I breathe out all the toxic energy. I'm breathing out all the fear. I'm breathing out all the anxiety. I'm breathing out all the anguish. I'm breathing out all the stress. And I probably do this. You might walk by my office sometime. I got a window in my office. You can see me doing this. I probably do this 15 or 20 times a day. It's just good emotional regulation. Stop, drop, and roll. I don't want to find myself in a position where my vehicle isn't being maintained. And so we talk about resilience. Number one, we're talking about self-talk. But number two, we're talking about self-care. And the third thing about resilience that nobody ever told you or at least they're not going to tell you like I'm going to tell you here today, is that social support is critical. And this is the idea of healthy relationships. You and I are not meant to become resilient all by ourselves. It wouldn't be a wonderful thing if we could, because I actually think that people thrive best when they're in a safe community. And so if you're out there and you're trying to figure out, how do I get more resilient? Then one of the first things you can ask yourself is, what's my self-talk? Number 2, what's my self-care? We've talked about those 2 things. But number 3, what kind of community of social support am I putting myself in? This is so important. Can I just be honest? If you are surrounding yourself with stressed out, anxious, non-resilient people, it's going to be difficult for you to grow resilience within your own life. I've said this many times, but Dr. George Vallon, who led the Harvard study of adult development, which is, and by the way, it's still going on, the longest running study of mental health in human history, he said that the only thing that really matters in life is your relationships to other people. And so what does this mean? In practice, it means to stay connected. It means to be vulnerable. It means to get help when you need it, right? It means to actually have the ability to reach out and touch someone, reach out and talk to someone, reach out and team up with somebody who might be willing to help you. And so when it comes to building personal resilience, I hope these 3 things really help you. Number 1, pay attention to your self-talk. Number 2, pay attention to your self-care. And number 3, make sure that you have lots of social support, because the more your social support goes up, the more your anxiety and your stress will go down, and the higher your resilience will be. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. You know, in our programs and in our training, especially in Flourishing Workplace, we help workplaces create resilient environments. I'll tell you, that's literally what we do. We've worked with hundreds of big companies, small companies. We've worked with nonprofits. We've worked with government. We've worked with law enforcement. We've worked with first responders. I can tell you that we worked with dozens and dozens of First Nations right across Canada. I'll tell you what are we doing? We're helping them build resilience. We're helping them build mental health. And so go to flourishingworkplace.com, check out what we have. And I would love to hear your comments below. What do you think about resilience, and what helps you build personal resilience? Please let us know below. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you in our next episode.